Their name lit up your phone, and for a second, you just looked at it. No anger, no sadness, just one quiet thought. I'm done. And the part nobody talks about? You didn't feel guilty. You felt lighter. If you've ever cut someone off and felt relief instead of regret, this one is for you. Today, we're breaking down the psychology of people who cut people off quickly, what's really happening inside your mind, and why it's not the thing they made you believe it was. Point 1. The decision was made long before the moment. Here's the first thing people get wrong about you. They think you cut people off fast. You don't. The goodbye was fast. The decision took months. Because while everyone else kept handing that person the benefit of the doubt, your brain was quietly taking notes. The canceled plans, the one-sided conversations, the way they only ever showed up when they needed something. You weren't being dramatic. You were collecting evidence. You were watching a pattern finish forming. Psychologists call this pattern recognition, your mind's ability to see a repeating shape before the picture is even complete. And when you've been hurt before, that system runs faster, sharper, quieter. So by the time you finally walked away, it didn't feel sudden to you. It felt overdue. The cutoff wasn't the start of the story. It was the last page. Point 2. The relief is the proof. Now let's talk about the feeling that confuses everyone. You block someone, you walk away, and instead of guilt, you feel lighter. Most people assume that means something cold lives inside you. It doesn't. In psychology, there's a simple rule. Your brain repeats whatever brings relief. It's called negative reinforcement. Take away something painful, and that relief quietly teaches your nervous system, do that again. So when you step back from a person and your shoulders finally drop, that's not you being heartless. That's your body telling you a truth your mind kept arguing with. You were carrying weight. You just didn't realize how heavy it was until you put it down. Relief isn't a red flag. Relief is information, and you finally learned how to listen to it. Point 3. You closed an account that only ever withdrew. Every relationship runs on an invisible exchange. Effort in, effort out. We're wired for it. There's an entire field of psychology built around reciprocity, the unspoken rule that connection is supposed to flow both ways. And somewhere along the line, you started noticing the math. You were the one who always reached out first. You were the one who remembered the little details. You were the one who kept showing up for people who never once showed up for you. You weren't keeping score because you were petty. You were keeping score because you were exhausted. And one day, the ledger got too lopsided to ignore. So you did what any drained person eventually does. You stopped funding a relationship that was always overdrawn. That's not cruelty. That's accounting. Point 4. But here's the part you have to be honest about now. I'd be lying to you if I made this whole video about how right you always are. Because not every fast cutoff is protection. Some of them are avoidance wearing protection's clothing. And here's the difference. It matters. A boundary says, I won't allow this behavior. Avoidance says, I won't allow this conversation. Sometimes cutting someone off is the healthiest thing you can possibly do. And sometimes it's just the easier thing. Because the hard conversation feels scarier than the silence. There's a reason for this too. For some of us, closeness never felt safe growing up. So distance became the place we ran to whenever things got uncomfortable. And the brain, trying to keep us safe, learned a shortcut. If it might hurt, leave first. That shortcut protects you. But sometimes it also leaves you alone in the exact moments where staying would have made you grow. So here's the only question that matters. When you cut that person off, were you protecting your peace, or were you just avoiding a hard moment you didn't want to feel? You don't have to answer out loud, you just have to answer honestly. Point 5. Why the door doesn't open again. And once you've made the decision, there's one thing people never seem to understand about you. You don't go back. They call you cold for it, unforgiving, but they don't know what you know. You've learned that for some people, a second chance just becomes a second wound. That I've changed sometimes only means I got caught. That the same door you reopen out of kindness is the same door they walk back through to take a little more. So you stopped reopening it. Not because you can't forgive, but because you finally understand the difference between forgiveness and access. You can forgive someone completely in your heart and still never hand them the keys again. That's not bitterness. That's a person who finally decided their peace was worth guarding. So let's go back to that name lighting up your phone. The world has a word for people like you. Isolated, withdrawn, hard to reach. But every one of those words assumes you're missing something. Here's a better word: chosen. Loneliness is being alone and wishing you weren't. What you have is different. You're not sitting there hoping they'll call. You're sitting in a quiet you built on purpose. And for the first time, it feels like peace instead of punishment. You're not heartless. You're not broken. You're someone who learned, the hard way, that not everyone gets access to your energy. And instead of letting that lesson turn you bitter, you turned it into boundaries. A small circle isn't a sad life. A small circle full of people who actually see you, that's the entire point. So if this felt like something you needed to hear today, do me one small favor. Drop a comment and tell me, when you cut someone off, do you feel guilt or do you feel peace? I read every single one. And if this is the kind of psychology you want more of, subscribe to Into the Psych, because the most powerful person in the room is usually the one who finally understands themselves. I'll see you in the next one.